Good morning, everyone. Welcome to May 1st Audits and Risk Management Committee. Hello, John. I guess we need to take attendance.
Attendance.
For the State Controller, Ms. Gallegos.
Here.
For the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mr. Garfinkel.
Here.
Mr. Keeley.
Here.
For the State Treasurer, Mr. Ruffino.
Present.
For the Director of Finance, Ms. Peralt.
Here.
Chairperson Bradford, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Would anyone like to move approval of the agenda? Oh, yes, please read. Yes.
The CalSTRS board meetings are live web streamed, video archived, and available to the public on calstrs.com. Individuals who wish to address the board should wait for the 10-minute public comment period at the end of the agenda item the speaker wishes to address. For comments not pertaining to a specific agenda item, there will be an opportunity for additional statements at the end of the open session. Each speaker is allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to comment. However, if there is not enough time for each speaker to have 3 minutes, the timing will be at the discretion of the chair. To protect the privacy of speakers under the age of 18 who wish to address the board, only their first name and affiliated organization may be provided, but other personal identifying information, such as their last name, age, or school, may not be shared.
Thank you. Item number one, approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
We have it moved and seconded. Without objection, we will approve the agenda. Item number 2, approval of the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Without objection, we will approve the minutes of March 7th, 2024. Are there any public comments on those items? Okay, seeing none, our consent agenda, which is just informational item, number 3, audit services 6-month plan update. Does anyone have questions or comments on that? Okay. That was just informational, so we are finally to some action. Number 4, fiscal year 24-25 audit services plan. Good morning, Cheryl, Dr. Yetman.
All right, so this item is an action item seeking your approval on the 2024-25 risk-based audit plan. Here with me today is Chris Wall, the Assistant Director of Employer Audits, and Roseanne Oyoung, the Assistant Director of Internal Audits. In this presentation, we'll discuss the audit plan development, the employer audits risk assessment, the internal audits risk assessment, and then we'll wrap up seeking your approval over the proposed plan. So the internal audit standards require the chief auditor to develop a risk-based audit plan that's designed to add value and be flexible and also align with the organization's priorities and risks. So we developed the plan using 2 distinct risk assessment processes, which you'll hear from Chris and Roseanne about, and also sets the priorities of our work based on our resources, and then aligns with the organization's strategic goals and enterprise risks. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Chris to discuss the employer audits risk assessment.
Hi, thank you for having us today. Okay, I'm going to start off by going over our risk assessment process and how that process leads into our audit plan. We are continuously looking at ways that we can improve or enhance our ability to use data analytics as we conduct our risk assessment. Some of the areas that we really use data analytics to look at the numbers being reported are in the pay rates being reported, earnings that are reported for the different members, special compensation, and unused sick leave. And as we look at that information, we're really looking for outliers that may not match what we would anticipate finding, or any other elements that are being reported to us that show that there's a higher level of risk. We do take into account the results of the Crow GASB 67 review. We gather feedback from CalSTRS, different CalSTRS divisions, and we're trying to be more aware of what areas of risk that they've identified and areas that they would like us to look at. And then finally, we use the knowledge we gain from prior audits to see, is there certain things we should be looking at in the next year's audit plan. And for this year, we're going to be conducting approximately 110 audits. That's taking into account the results of our risk assessment as well as the resources available to us. And as always, our highest risk area is almost always special compensation. So for this next year, we're going to be looking at about 50% of our audits will be based on special compensation. The next highest risk areas are really base compensation and unused sick leave, which are kind of aren't that big a difference. So we're going to be looking at about 25% of our audits will be on base compensation, and the remaining 20 will be on unused sick leave. Finally, we have about 5% that we're dedicating to post-retirement earnings. There's other areas that we could potentially look at as well. We do reserve some audits that can be conducted of areas such as membership, demographics, or anything else that really comes up during the year that we're asked to look at. We can look at those areas as well. And as at the end of the audit, or at the end of this presentation, there are some additional slides that you can go through and look at, and it's a list of the potential. It's a potential list of employers that could be audited as we look at the 110 audits. There's actually more than 110 on there. It's the top. I think it's approximately 200 that are the highest risk employers, and it's always possible that we could be looking at employers that aren't on the list if something comes up throughout the year that warrants us to review them. But for the most part, that should cover the majority of the audits being conducted.
All right, and then I'll go ahead and hand it over to Roseanne to discuss the internal audit process.
Good morning. I'm happy to share with you the internal audit risk assessment methodology that we use. We consider both external factors and internal factors. Some of the external factors that we use includes information obtained from external consultants and other audit professionals, industry risk based on our information gathering and research, as well as peer connections with other state agencies or other public pension funds. We also consider internal factors from discussions we have with leaders as well as our internal audit team, and this includes updates to any processes, technology, or legal requirements, and we leverage enterprise risk information and consider if we perform prior audits. With all that information, we then update our audit universe, and we use categories for our assessment, including interdependencies, whether the process is manual or automated, and then we prioritize our risks, and then that yields our proposed audit plan. And here you'll see the list of proposed audits for the 24-25 audit plan and how it provides coverage to the enterprise risks, as well as aligns with the strategic plan goals.
So based on those two risk assessment processes, we are proposing 110 employer audits over those areas of special comp, base comp, post-retirement earnings, and unused sick leave. And of course, if we can do more, we'll definitely do more, but we want to hit at least 110 if we can. Then for internal audits, we're going to review the higher risk areas that are located in the attachment, and Roseanne just discussed, based on like information security, investments, business continuity, and third-party type risks. And then we reserve time in our audit plan for the other audit activities, and those include the new standards that just came out to make sure that we're in conformance with those, as well as our continuing professional education that's required. And then we also reserve time for just typical administration and management, recruitment, retention, distribution of our reports, review of the audit work that's performed. And so with all that in the attachment, we are proposing the 24-25 risk audit plan, but we're happy to answer questions and receive any input you may have.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Anyone? Dr. Yetman, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So standards require that the board approves the annual audit plan, and this is your opportunity to approve the plan that you've been presented. I've gone through the plan extensively and worked with staff developing it, and I find it to be a prudent use of the organization's audit resources.
Okay. Let's see if I can get you in here, Harry. Why isn't it coming up here? There you go. Mr. Keeley should be on.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks for the report, all the work clearly articulated with Dr. Yetman's input and involvement. I'm comfortable making a motion to approve the report as presented by staff today.
Okay, we have one more comment. Mr. Ruffino.
Madam Chair, thank you. I was just going to make the motion, but I'll second it now that it's
Perfect.
made it.
Okay, I think we should do public comment before we take a vote. Is there any public comment?
There are no members of the public.
Thank you. Okay, with no comments, we have a first and a second to approve the audit services plan. Is that a roll call, I would assume?
Yes, right at under the new Bagley Keene, all votes on action items are going to be roll call votes.
Okay, thank you.
For the State Controller, Ms. Gallegos.
Aye.
For the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mr. Garfinkel.
Aye.
Mr. Keeley.
Aye.
For the State Treasurer, Mr. Ruffino.
Aye.
For the Director of Finance, Ms. Peralt.
Aye.
Chairperson Bradford, would you care to vote?
Yes, and yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Motion passes. Thank you all for all of your hard work in this plan, and we look forward to see the results.
Thank you.
Okay, information item number 5. Okay.
All right. Good morning, Chair Bradford, members of the committee.
Morning.
My name is Julie Underwood. I'm the Chief Financial Officer, and I'm here today with Lynn Bashaw. She is our Director over our Enterprise Risk Management and Enterprise Compliance Services programs. And we are very pleased to present to you today, for the very first time, a proposed comprehensive document that memorializes our Enterprise Risk Management framework. So we're really excited to present this to you today. So as a reminder, the board has delegated to this committee oversight over our ERM framework. And your approval of this new document today helps the committee to meet that responsibility. It also supports one of our strategic plan objectives, which is to enhance how risks are defined, viewed, and managed. It aligns with our 18-month maturity plan for both our risk and compliance programs. And overall, it sets expectations for how we're managing risks throughout the organization. Now I'm going to turn it over to Lynn. She's going to talk about the importance of having a comprehensive framework, as well as reviewing with me how this document's organized.
Thank you. So first question is, why do we need a framework? An ERM framework provides a structured approach to identifying, assessing, and managing risks, thereby enhancing our ability to anticipate and mitigate potential threats to our objectives. Some benefits of this approach are up here on the screen. It improves risk awareness, enhances decision-making, integrates risk and compliance, strengthens accountability, and facilitates continuous improvement. So how do we go about building the framework? What did we base it on? Our ERM framework is based on the COSO Integrated ERM Framework Model. COSO is the committee of sponsoring organizations, which is made up of the Institute of Internal Auditors, the American Accounting Association, the Association of Internal CPAs, the Financial Executives International, and the Association of Accountants and Financial Professionals. So it's a big group of organizations that come together through this committee to provide thought leadership and guidance on enterprise risk management, internal controls, and governance. As you can see on the slide, the components of the COSO framework include governance and ethics, strategy, performance, review, and communication. These are the same components that we use to build our maturity plan for the enterprise risk and compliance programs. I'm not going to go over the whole framework in this presentation because it is a little bit long and it's in your materials. However, I wanted to highlight some of the key areas for you. First, we're going to talk about some of the key groups that support these framework components. So as part of developing the framework document, we summarized these key groups their members, and their responsibilities into this one table. This is not reflective of a change to our processes because this is what we're already doing, but instead it shows what these groups do to support the framework. The benefit of documenting it this way is that it clearly outlines each group's role so that everyone understands the part they play and the part that the other groups play in supporting the overall framework. This is my favorite slide. As a reminder, back in March, we provided an education item conceptually on the ERM framework, and it showed a slightly different graphic than what you see here. This is our updated graphic that we made. As part of the maturity plan, we have updated the graphic to include this committee, the Audits and Risk Management Committee, and the important part that you play in overseeing the ERM framework, compliance, financial reporting, internal controls, and external audits. The top 3 blocks of this pyramid describe how the board has ultimate responsibility for risks, the areas delegated to this committee, and the role of the Executive Risk and Compliance Committee. These top blocks largely represent the governance structure. The 3 foundational blocks of the pyramid show the responsibilities of internal CalSTRS staff and our external auditors in implementing the framework. The framework document also includes now this table that shows the reporting schedule and topics so that everyone knows what types of reports they are to receive and where information is flowing. This is just a snapshot for the presentation. The actual figure in the document is much larger. But by having a document formalized reporting structure, this helps to improve communication and oversight. We are recommending a change to the reporting, and I'm going to hand it off to Julie to discuss those changes.
Thank you, Lynn. So for the most part, this document defines what it is that we're doing today to manage risks. But there are 2 key changes that we wanted to bring to your attention. One is the change that Lynn already mentioned, which is adding the ARM committee to the framework. This is the visual representation of what our framework is, and it is important for the ARM committee to be a part of that. And then the second recommendation is to move the semi-annual risk reporting. Let me go back to the slide. Moving the semi-annual risk reporting from the full board to this committee. Now, by doing that, this change will allow this committee to dive a little bit deeper in evaluating and monitoring our risk reporting processes. And then as we mature the program, we will be working with you to develop new reporting for the full board. So what is important for the full board to be seen from a emerging risk perspective, existential risk, and even enterprise level risks. And so any risk that has impacts to our strategic objectives and what you feel is important to pass on to the full board for us to discuss with them. So we'll be working with you on additional reporting for the board. So those are the 2 key changes. So today's item is a first reading. Now, of course, we would support you if you're wanting to approve the item today, or we're happy to incorporate any feedback you have into a second reading, and we would bring that back to you the next time this committee meets in September. Now, once the framework's approved, we will be bringing it back to you every 2 years for you to review to ensure that it continues to meet our needs as we continue to mature our overall program. Lastly, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Lynn and her risk and compliance teams. They've worked really hard in putting this document together for us. They've also developed brand new charters for the risk and compliance programs that you'll see in the next item. And so really wanted to appreciate them for all their great work. So thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
And with that, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Ms. Gallegos?
Sure, thank you. I just wanted to say, one, I think this is really well done and want to just offer my appreciation to staff. I read through it pretty thoroughly and I think it's very well done. We talked a little bit about it in terms of breaking out the compliance and just want to congratulate staff on that. And one question I did have in moving this to the Risk and Audit Committee, we will still be reporting out to the board, correct? There's
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that that was sort of clear that there still is the reporting up to the full board.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Keeley?
Ditto. And I think the second change, proposed change to bring the semi-annual report to this committee, I think accomplishes a couple of things. I think it makes a laser focus on the importance of that report to this committee, freeing up time on the full board's committee. I think what's super important is to reinforce the importance of how we're going to report up what is going to be reported up to the full board. So to be determined. As it relates to approving this today with Dr. Yetman's blessing, I'd certainly like to hear from Dr. Yetman on the pros and cons of approving it today. As I see it, bringing it back in September really delays the staff from actually maybe making some progress between now and September. And with time being our most precious resource, I don't see anything in the report that prevents me from not supporting the adoption of this today, but I would defer to our experts' recommendation as well. So some comments, no question, I apologize.
Okay, Dr. Yetman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I certainly can't give a blessing, but what I can't do, is remind the board that these are living, breathing documents. And just to get to so accountants, we're not prone to enthusiasms, but if I were, yay. This is a really big moment for the organization to bring together a consistent, coherent framework for risk management. So I think it's a really great step, and it took a lot of work and a lot of leadership to get here. But these documents and the charters that are to come as well are living, breathing documents, and there's no sense in which we're going to get it perfect the first time. But so with that in mind, knowing that if there were something that came up later on and you said, oh, we need to tweak that, you can. It's quite easy to do. The board can make changes to these documents whenever it decides it would like to. And so with that in mind, providing some comfort, my recommendation to the board, if the board felt comfortable to move ahead, would be to vote on this today for the exact reasons that Member Keatley said.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any public comments?
There are no members of the public in the queue.
Great, thank you. I'd like to thank all of you and your teams. I know you guys worked really hard on this, and thank you for all the time that you spent getting us all up to speed, because that's really helpful. Are you?
Yeah, so I move that we adopt the plan as proposed today.
Great, we have a first and a second. John, would you like to take a vote?
Might be technical. State Controller, Ms. Gallegos. The State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mr. Garfinkel.
Aye.
Mr. Keeley.
Aye.
For the State Treasurer, Mr. Ruffino.
Aye.
For the Director of Finance, Ms. Peralt.
Aye.
Chairperson Bradford, would you care to vote?
Yes, thank you. Okay, that concludes item number 5. Thank you very much. Item number 6. I think we have the same team in place.
Wait for the presentation to come up. So this next item is a first reading of the Audit and Risk Management Committee Charter and proposed updates to that charter. And I'm here to present with Julie Underwood, the CFO, and Lynn can put in her, she worked on this chart as well, so we'll have her put any input she has on it as well. But if you are so inclined, this information on first reading, but if you like the proposed changes, then we would happy to have you adopt them. So periodically we review the charter to help and assist the committee fulfill their oversight responsibility and also ensure that we're staying aligned with recent standards, practices, and expectations. So we did a couple changes related to formatting. So we just restructured the charter from the original charter to put in categories, and then we made some changes to the content, as I said, to ensure that we remain current with practices. We support that enterprise risk and compliance maturity plans, and then we conform with the new internal audit standards. I'm going to hand it, we did highlight some key changes in the responsibility section, so Julie's going to start off and discuss those.
Thank you, Cheryl. So first, on the financial reporting side, we added that the committee is responsible for approving the independent financial statement audit results. This is something you already do, but it wasn't specifically laid out in the existing charter, so we wanted to make sure that we added that. For the risk management framework, we added that you would be responsible for approving the enterprise risk management program charter, and that's coming up in the next item 6B for your review. We also clarified and added some language because right now the charter just says you're reviewing emerging risks, but we also added existential risks as well as enterprise level risks, all the risks that could impact our strategic objectives. So we clarified that. Internal controls, we added that you would have oversight over the financial statement auditor's management letter. Now, as you know, management voluntarily provides you with that letter if we receive one. That includes the deficiencies the financial statement auditor points out to management, and we work to mitigate those deficiencies because if we didn't do anything, they could potentially lead to material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that the auditors would speak to you about. So we feel it's really important for you to have visibility in what management's doing to mitigate those deficiencies. So instead of it being a voluntary practice, we're recommending that it now becomes a mandatory practice. On the compliance side, we added some additional language to be a little bit more specific about what the enterprise compliance services team's responsibilities are. We also excluded from those responsibilities the work that the investments branch does with the investment committee on compliance activities, as well as the work that the Office of Legal Ethics and Accountability does for conflict of interest work. Those are very well-established, well-running programs that different teams do that work. So we wanted to exclude that from the work that the ECS team would be doing. And of course, we also added the approval of the Enterprise Compliance Services Program Charter, which you'll see in item 6C. So now I'll turn it back over to Cheryl to talk about the internal audit changes.
So for the internal audit changes we made were really in response to the new standards, as well as just clarifying some language. We enhanced the committee's oversight responsibilities regarding the chief auditor. We added some responsibilities. We really memorialized the responsibility on independence and disclosure of impairments. We included responsibilities related to our audit activities, additional audit activities that are now required by the standards. We beefed up the quality assurance and improvement program responsibilities, and then we addressed the coordination, management, and reporting of engagements with external audit firms beyond the external auditor. But as you know, we co-source some of that work in internal audits, so making sure that that's addressed, and then we report out to you on those items. So with that, we're happy to seek feedback or answer any questions.
I see no questions from the board. I'm Dr. Yetman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just very briefly, I want to highlight the management letter issue. So management letters are an opportunity for the auditor to express their thoughts on the results of their audit and review of the internal control system. And it is almost always private. It's rare, well, my experience never, but never say never, shared with the board and presented in a public forum. It's really the auditor's chance to share in a very frank format, sort of the soft underbelly, if you will, in a way that doesn't become public. Well, this board, in my opinion and its wisdom, has said, nope, that's coming out. So it's always been a tradition that it has been brought forth, but it's never been memorialized. So to actually memorialize in a charter the presentation of a management letter, those words may seem somewhat innocuous, but it's a pretty big deal. It shows real leadership in transparency. It memorializes transparency, I think, in a very material way. So I think it's important to understand that. Another one is this looks like a lot of changes. If you look at the blue lines and the red, it's like, oh my gosh, it's a whole new world. Well, it is, but it's not. Many of these just memorialize what boards have been just practically doing, working along. Some of them are required, particularly internal control, by a new set of standards that came out and require some verbiage changes. And then it also, of course, because of the other changes in enterprise risk, the sort of broader concept of bringing that down to the ARM committee and the ARM committee taking ownership. of this. So that's really what it reflects. So although it looks like there's a lot of ink, a lot of blue ink and a lot of red ink, it's really not as big a change as you might think. Nonetheless, if you're not comfortable with this, there's an opportunity for a second reading. However, in my opinion, I've been through this a lot, and I feel comfortable recommending that you vote on it now.
We have a question from Ms. Gallegos.
Thank you. I appreciate the transparency that this board has always tried to achieve. I do have a question though, based on what you said. If we do make it public, do you think we will still get the same frankness and honesty from the auditor as they present the report so that we can address issues that need to be addressed?
That's a great question. So would the auditor back down knowing that this is going to become public? And I feel pretty strongly in saying no. First off, it's your auditor is a pretty nose to the grindstone auditor that you've chosen. They wouldn't bat an eye. They're not going to back down. Furthermore, standards require what they say and don't say, and so we are, as professional accountants, required to follow those standards. And so I believe that they would not back down.
Great, thank you.
I don't see any further comments. Are there any comments from the public?
There are no members of the public in the queue.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Perfect. To move forward with it. Okay, great. So we have decided to vote on moving this forward. So technical difficulty solved over there. Perfect. We're just doing A. I thought better to do it one at a time.
For the State Controller, Ms. Gallegos.
Aye.
For the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mr. Garfinkel.
Aye.
Mr. Keeley.
Aye.
For the State Treasurer, Mr. Ruffino.
Aye.
For the Director of Finance, Ms. Peralt.
Aye.
Chairperson Bradford, would you care to vote?
Yes, thank you. I vote yes. Ms. Gallegos, did you hop back in the queue or? No. Okay. Okay. That was 6A, motion passes. So now we are on 6B.
Thank you. So Linda Shaw, your Director of Enterprise Risk Management and Compliance Services. The purpose of this item is to present this committee with the first reading of a proposed Enterprise Risk Management Program Charter. This charter is new, and it's just one piece of the larger overall ERM framework that we talked about earlier. It's intended to codify the responsibilities, scope, and structures for managing enterprise risks within the organization. Today's item, like the other items, it's a first reading, but we do support the committee in approving this item today, if so desired, or we can bring it back for a second reading at the next meeting in September. So documenting this charter supports CalSTRS strategic plan, goal 1, objective E, to enhance how risks are defined, viewed, and managed. To provide a little bit of background on how we got here, an enterprise risk and compliance maturity assessment was completed by Weaver and Tidwell and was presented to this committee in March of 2023. The maturity assessment recommendations emphasized the need to formalize the risk management and compliance frameworks through governing documents. In November 2023, a maturity plan was presented to this committee, which included plans to develop charters for enterprise risk and compliance for the enterprise risk and compliance programs. This item is for the Enterprise Risk Program Charter, and the next item on the agenda is for the Enterprise Compliance Program Charter. But this slide highlights some of the benefits of establishing program charters. It includes clarity and consistency, stakeholder confidence, and governance enhancement. Some highlights of the Enterprise Risk Management Charter are that it supports the board's risk management policy and the overall ERM framework. It defines the scope and responsibilities of the Enterprise Risk Management Program, outlines the program's access to systems and staff, and requires self-evaluations for continuous improvement. And that's my presentation on that item. Available for questions should you have any.
Okay. Seeing no questions, Dr. Getman, would you like to give us your opinion?
This is also something to be excited about. So notice the lack of blue ink and red ink, which means there's nothing to change. This is the very first time that you've had a charter, and the same for the next one as well, the compliance. And so you might ask, do we really need both? And the answer is yeah, they do very different things. The compliance is just strictly focused on compliance, whereas this one is focused on ERM, or enterprise risk management. So they are both, and it's really nice because it ties together, it memorializes and ties together what used to be sort of more informally stated. And getting to this point is, again, it's part of the maturity process of our new compliance program. And there's been a lot of heavy lifting that went on and a lot of leadership by your CFO to pull this across the finish line. And as I said before, if you felt comfortable to vote, my recommendation would be to vote on this. If, as we go along, there will be changes made to this, no doubt, as the program matures, as it develops, and you find that changes need to be made, you can make those changes anytime you wish. But I believe that this is a great first start, in my opinion. Thank you.
So we can make changes anytime we wish, but we'll revisit it every other year, correct? Okay, just want to make sure. Mr. Rufino?
Approval, Madam Chair.
Okay,
Second.
great. We have a first and second to move approval on the Enterprise Risk Management Program Charter. Are there any comments from the public?
There are no members of the public in the queue.
Thank you. Okay, now we're ready.
For the State Controller, Ms. Gallegos.
Aye.
For the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mr. Garfinkel.
Aye.
Mr. Keeley.
Aye.
For the State Treasurer, Mr. Rufino.
Aye.
For the Director of Finance, Ms. Peralt.
Aye.
Chairperson Bradford, would you care to vote?
I vote yes, thank you. Okay, item 6C, Enterprise Compliance Services Program Charter.
All right, so very similar to the last item. This is the proposed Enterprise Compliance Services Program Charter. Today, again, is a first reading. We do support the committee in approving this item today, if so desired, or we can bring it back for a second reading at the next meeting. This charter is also new and codifies the scope, responsibilities, and structure for managing the enterprise compliance risks within the organization. You'll note that the overall structure and tone of the compliance charter, again, is very similar to the enterprise risk program charter because of a lot of the processes are similar between enterprise risk and compliance, and we leverage some of the same governing bodies. However, compliance has its own separate charter because they have specific areas of focus. Enterprise compliance oversees the organization's policy administration, code of conduct, support for third-party risk management, and administration of the compliance and ethics hotline. So we thought it was more straightforward to just create separate charters. It's important to note that this charter, as Julie mentioned earlier, scopes out the investment compliance and conflict of interest responsibilities, which are managed by other areas of the organization. This charter outlines the compliance program's access to systems, staff, and requires regular self-evaluations for continuous improvement. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions should you have any.
Okay, seeing no questions from the board, Dr. Yetman?
I feel like a broken record. I think the one thing to point out that is important is the carve-out, the two carve-outs that have been made. One is for the investment compliance function, which has been, of course, pre-existing for quite some time now and is highly functioning, and so that's a carve-out, so that it doesn't mess with that. And then, of course, a carve-out for legal issues that are better handled by your capable legal staff. And so I think it's important to note that it's not everything. It carves out what reasonably, in my opinion, should be carved out, and so I agree with that. And as with the other ones, I'm comfortable with this, and I recommend that the board approve it.
Okay, are there any public comments?
There are no members of the public in the queue.
Okay, great. Ms. Gallegos moves that we approve item 6C. We have a second? Thank you. Okay. John, it's all you.
For the State Controller, Ms. Gallegos.
Aye.
For the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mr. Garfinkel.
Aye.
Mr. Keeley.
Aye.
For the State Treasurer, Mr. Ruffino.
Aye.
For the Director of Finance, Ms. Peralt.
Aye.
Chairperson Bradford, would you care to vote?
I vote yes, thank you. Okay, that concludes item 6. Good job. Thank you all so much. I know that was a ton of work, and now the real work begins, right? Following all the charters. Item number 7, Enterprise Risk Management and Compliance Services Maturity Plan Progress Report. That's quite a title.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is an information item to provide this committee with an update on the first 3 months of our Enterprise Risk Management and Compliance Services 18-month maturity plans. These plans were developed in support of CalSTRS Strategic Goal 1, Objective E, to enhance how risks are defined, viewed, and managed. This maturity plan is designed to enhance CalSTRS' ability to identify, assess, and mitigate risks while ensuring an ethical culture and compliance with regulations. To provide some background on how we got here, in March 2023, a maturity assessment was presented to this committee, which included several recommendations for maturing the programs. And then in November 2023, we presented the 18-month work plan designed to mature the programs. Many of the initiatives included in these work plans are designed to build or enhance our internal enterprise risk management and compliance infrastructure. I'd like to introduce the Assistant Director of Enterprise Risk, Phil Burkholder, to talk about where we are in the enterprise risk maturity process. And then after that, Megan Hatfield, your Senior Compliance Manager, will talk about where we are with the enterprise compliance maturity plan. Take it away, Phil.
Thank you, Lynn. Good morning. As Lynn said, my name is Phil Burkholder. I'm the Assistant Director over Enterprise Risk Management. As a reminder, I put the maturity plan that we gave you back in November up on the screen. You'll see it's broken up into 3 phases. They each phase represents roughly 6 months. And the components running down the left-hand side, you'll see those are similar to the ones you just saw in our framework. And so the plan is broken up by the components. Some of the key highlights of this plan is staff training, getting enterprise risk software, which we're really excited about, updating the framework, which you just saw, and the integration of risk appetite statements and key risk indicators into our risk culture. So this is a progress report as of March 31st. So our first 3 months of trying to get this done. You'll see that there's a number of, that everything in the first phase has been touched and is on target. You also see that there are things in phase 2 that have been touched and things that have in phase 3 that aren't indicated as being touched. I will tell you that they have been touched. I like to think of the conservative principle, and we haven't touched them enough to really indicate it there. But we will get them all done on time. We fully expect to be able to complete this within the 18 months. The things that we have accomplished or are working on toward, we have been able to begin working on developing training plans for staff. We've been able to make a lot of progress on creating a consolidated risk universe. And we've made a lot of progress on getting software. We've gone through the governance process and we're moving towards getting software for the system. The one piece of the puzzle that is highlighted in green is developing risk appetite statements. We have provided drafts of risk appetite statements to the executive teams. And so that was a big milestone. We got that through them. They've approved us to move forward with a pilot to work with the risk strategy management to kind of get these things started to integrate into our processes. I'm going to hand it off to Megan to cover Enterprise Compliance Services.
Hi, I'm Megan Hatfield. I'm the Senior Manager for Enterprise Compliance Services. On the screen, you're going to see the Enterprise Compliance Services 18-month plan that was presented to this committee in November 2023. It's laid out similar to what Phil just went over with ERM in 3 phases. So the plan includes the Enterprise Compliance Charter, which this committee approved today, so I'm very happy about that. A procedure manual mapping compliance activities across the organization and outlining the framework for a compliance monitoring program. So the plan also includes ongoing support of third-party risk management and compliance, procurement compliance. So this slide shows the first 2 phases of our maturity plan. And we're 3 months into the 18-month plan, and I'm happy to show the progress that we've made. Some of the things that we have done, we have developed a draft charter, which was approved today. We completed the internal procedures manual document, which included the compliance and ethics hotline administration, SOC reporting, policy management, and compliance risk assessment processes. We also performed a gap analysis on training needs to support the program's maturity, and my team and I have participated in over 75 hours of professional education and compliance and ethics topics. So that's a really big win for us. We developed a risk-based compliance education plan for the organization, and that began January 2024. And we successfully completed and took over the 2024 annual enterprise-wide policy attestation process that was historically owned by Human Resources. This slide shows the phase 3 of the maturity plan, and as you see, these are not started yet. That is intentional. They're supposed to start later in the plan. Our vision is to transform our risk and compliance programs into best-in-class models. So we're working really hard, and we want to make sure that we follow these plans, and they'll enable us to identify and address risks and maintain a culture of compliance and ethical behavior. So my team and I are very excited about showing you guys what we've achieved so far, and we are available for questions if you have any.
Great, thank you. Questions from the board? Seeing none, Dr. Yetman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as you know, the compliance program is really in its infancy and is just sort of getting off the ground. And so that's why these reports are being brought to you, and I think they should continue to be brought to you, especially as the program builds a strong foundation and builds itself out. And it's taken a lot of leadership. Ultimately, the compliance program report, well, everything flows to the Chief Executive Officer, but the compliance direct report is your CFO. And so it's taken a great deal of leadership on the part of your CFO and Ms. Bashaw and the team that she's been able to assemble to get where we are. But let's remember that we are still in our infancy, and I really appreciate the seriousness with which the compliance program is building itself out in a very methodical, prudent, and cautious way. They're not rushing into things. They're not trying to bite off more than they can chew. And I think that's the real important thing. So I'm pleased with what I see so far, and thanks for your work.
Thank you. We appreciate everything being streamlined and easier for all of us to understand as well. Are there any comments from the public?
There are no members of the public in the queue.
Okay, item 7 was an informational item, so thank you very much. We can move on to item 8, input on the work plan. He's not on here.
So this item is informational and requesting some input from the committee, and Julie Underwood and I are going to present on that. Let's see, I'll pull it out here. The work plan covers typical areas that you would see as far as external audits and internal audits. Their results, their plan, like our risk-based plan, their plan, as well as our results of the work. There are a few new items when it comes to the audits in relation to the new standards. So we did create information item on that in November, and then also some new items that you'll see related to quality assurance and improvement program, and then audit services activities, performance, and resource plan progress. And these are all the new items from the standard. So there are some new items, and as we do our gap analysis of what we're already doing and what we need to do, we'll decide if we need to change this plan, but that's for the next year. We'll give you some education throughout every meeting to help you get up to speed on these new standards, and as we get up to speed on the new standards. And I think Julie wanted to address, I think this plan is going to change now based on the adoption of the charters and the framework, so I'll let you speak to that.
Thank you, Cheryl. Julie Underwood, Chief Financial Officer. And so since you approved the framework and the charters today, what we would ask is that the work plan before you today get revised take off the second reading that we were planning to bring back in September and replace that with a semi-annual risk report where we would discuss that with you and also include some discussions on emerging and existential risks. And we would also do another semi-annual risk report with you in May. That would be the big change on the existing work plan that you have before you. In addition, I just wanted to point out that we also have our annual compliance and ethics hotline report that we'd present to you in September. We would continue to provide you with maturity plan progress reports on our 18-month maturity plan in November and May. And then we would come back to you in May for our new 25-26 fiscal year maturity plan, which we plan on being a one-year plan at that point. So that's the highlights of the work plan. Any questions for us?
Questions, comments? No comments? Okay. Any public comment? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Go ahead.
Just, could we get an updated work plan? Yes. So we have everything listed out. It was hard to take notes while you were talking.
Yes, we'll send that out to you. No problem.
Mr. Rafina?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to echo the earlier comments of congratulating the staff. This is great work and done very, very well. And the risk management framework, the charters, just again, congrats and thank you to everyone who has, I'm sure, worked very, very hard to get us to this point. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I think that concludes item number 8. Review of information requests. I don't believe we had any. Number 10, draft agenda for the next committee meeting. Is there anything we need to know?
And that agenda is going to change based on the changes we just made to the work plan.
So we'll get the updated version. Yes. All right. And are there any public comments?
There are no members of the public in the queue.
Okay, amazing. We're almost right on time. Thank you, everyone. This adjourns Audits and Risk Management Committee. I believe investments will begin at 10:35. Thank you. Thank you.